The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. You are tuned into Inspire FM 105.1 FM. Welcome to Mother's Planet, a show where there is always something to talk about in a productive and beneficial way. I am your host, Neelam, and joining me on the show is my guest, Molly. And we are having some technical issues, so I think Molly will be joining me, but maybe a tad later this morning than as expected. So please do bear with me. She will be on the show, and we will continue as normal. But for now, it's me. And how has your week been, listeners? It's been a crazy week. We have had crazy weather, from going to really cold, dull, dark, gloomy days to now really bright, sunny, hot days. So it is quite crazy and it is quite bizarre. And I'd like to know how your week has been and how you have been coping with the weather and what you've been doing. So, listeners, it's always a topic that I like to share on my show, the weather. I like to talk about the weather, and I like to see how we are cracking on with this weather. And it's typical British weather, whether I'm too hot or too cold, and not really in the middle. I don't often find that I have had a happy day where I'm feeling, oh, actually, that was quite a nice day. It's not hot, it's not cold, it's quite nice. It's quite rare that we do say that. And so, yeah. And all the mums and dads out there, we've got 2 weeks left of school. How are these last 2 weeks of school going? How are you finding getting up in the morning and getting the kids motivated to go to school in these last 2 weeks? I know many schools across the town are trying to make these last 2 weeks as fun as possible by doing things like sports activities and rewarding the children and giving them lots of treats to keep them motivated on coming in for the next day and, well, ultimately the next couple of weeks. So it's quite hard, and I'm hoping that we can get something cracking going. So hopefully, listeners, my guest will be on the show very soon now. She's just waiting to join. And I will be able to introduce the topic and the show with her, because I'd rather Molly be with me while I talk about this rather than me doing this without her being here. So, yes. Listeners, do reach out to me. Let me know how your week's been, how you're coping with the weather. Any sunshine tips, any how to cope with the heat tips are always welcome on my show. So please do share them with me this morning. Yeah, it's been a crazy week in my household. Always busy, always mad, but I've actually had poorly babies, so trying to deal with them and find how they're coping has actually been quite hard. Now, I believe Molly is on the show with me now this morning, so I will just connect Molly onto the show here. Morning, Molly.
Good morning, Neelam. Thank you so much for having me on to talk this morning.
No, thank you so much. Welcome to Mother's Planet on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. Thank you for joining me this morning. And apologies for the technical glitches that had happened there this morning. I took a week off last week for Eid celebration. So this is what happens when you're away for a week. Everything changes. So I need to keep up with the cycle. Molly, I will get you to formally introduce yourself to the listeners. But before I do, can I ask you, how has your week been?
Yeah, it's been a good week. It's been lovely because a lot of our work that we do is outdoors. So to have the sunshine and be able to be out in that has been really, really nice. But I know it's going to be really hot next week. So I'm not looking forward to that as much. But no, it has been a lovely week. What about yourself?
Yes, I was just having a moan at the listeners earlier on. I was just saying that it's typical British mode I'm in, where I'm either too hot or too cold, and I'm not really finding the happy-go medium at the moment. But we had quite a nice breeze yesterday, and there were more cloudy moments in the day than there were sunshine moments. So I like it when it's like that. And as long as there's a breeze, I'm happy. But when it's just heat, it's quite unbearable, and it's really difficult, because I don't know how you feel, but I find that the heat here, when I get too hot, it just zaps my energy. So I've got zero energy, zero motivation to do anything. Whereas when you're abroad, it's quite different, really. You want to sunbathe, soak the sun, and you do feel very different. So yeah, I don't feel that motivation here. I lock myself away.
And absolutely, when you've got all that air conditioning as well, that you can just get to, that makes such a difference as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I have got my kids standing there with their papers and fanning me every now and then, like, give me some breeze, because it's so cold, it's so hot, and I need some cold in me. But I was also saying that I had poorly children, so it's really hard when you've got the combination of hot heat and you've got poorly children, and especially when they've got temperatures, because it's really hard to try and get them to cool down. So yeah, that's been quite a challenge, but we're on the mend, and they are on the up now, so they've taken a turn, and hopefully I've nipped it in the bud, so come summer holidays they're not going to have any of these bugs that are lingering around. I'm hoping that the summer holiday, I'm hoping Molly, let's see how we go. The irony, I have to share this with you, Molly. So all week I've been trying to get a doctor's appointment, and we all know how difficult it is to get those. It's a challenge in itself. And I finally got through to the doctor, and the doctor actually needed to see my children because they had coughs, and she wanted to listen into their chest and check their ears and throat and everything. So she said, you need to come in. So I go in, and the youngest of the three, who's poorly, goes into the reception, and she's singing and she's dancing, and she's on a different planet. She's totally on a different planet, and I actually made a little video clip and sent it to my husband saying, this is the child that refused to move this morning, is now on a totally different page at this doctor's surgery. So it was quite embarrassing, really, because I had to convince the doctor that she really has been quite unwell. So yeah, I think it was just getting out of the house.
It's that school thing as well, isn't it, when they're allowed to have a bit of time off school, and then up until you say, okay, you can have the day off, and then all of a sudden they seem to get better about half an hour later.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that's exactly what's been happening in my house, especially with my son, because he's, coughing away, having a real bad coughing fit. And I think, you're not well enough. And half an hour later, can I watch this? Can I play this? And I thought you weren't well enough. So
exactly that.
I think they are putting the wool over my eyes there. So let's see. So listeners, share your week with us this morning. How's your week been? How have you coped with the sun? How have you had poorly children? How have you tamed your children at home? Also, you can share pictures with me this morning of the brew that you're having this morning, what kind of drink you have. Molly, are you a hot drinks person? Do you like hot drinks?
Yeah, I'm definitely a coffee person. I'm one of those people that feels like they need a coffee in the morning to get up. And actually, having iced coffee at the moment is so lovely in this weather. So I'd definitely say I'm a coffee person.
Yeah, I've got to look into this, because I don't drink tea anymore. I'm a green tea person, and so my husband was saying that he was speaking to a couple of people at work, and they're all really big on this iced coffee thing, and he's like, I've never had it, because he loves his coffee. We actually invested in a coffee machine, and he makes his own coffee, and he even does the little pattern. Costa and Starbucks have got nothing on him now with the patterns that he can create. So he really goes all out for his coffee, and so he really wants to try this iced coffee. So it's literally just making coffee but chucking ice cubes in it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm an awful person that always buys my iced coffee and hasn't really attempted to make it yet. And also live just above a cafe as well, so very, very tempting to go down and get one, especially in this heat and working from home and things like that. Definitely. But no, they're good, and they just get you going a little bit, I think, for the day. Yeah, definitely.
Got to try that. So listeners, there you go. That's something to try for this week. Make that the challenge for this weekend. Iced coffee. So listeners, we are live on air, reaching out to listeners in Luton and surrounding areas. You can connect through the show through the airwaves at Inspire FM 105.1 FM. Listeners can also connect through TuneIn via the Inspire FM webpage. Listeners can now also tune in via the Inspire FM app on your smartphone, so you've got no excuse to miss the show. We are also live as an audio on the Inspire FM Facebook page, where you must like the show, and you can also leave any comments or questions around today's topic. As always, you can also join in the discussion and share your thoughts on today's topic via the studio WhatsApp or text number of 07779 481 822. So any questions you have for myself or Molly, please do share those text messages or WhatsApp messages on that number. So in this show this morning, I have the privilege of having the lovely Molly on the show with me this morning to share an exciting project that has been introduced to the community to help promote a positive well-being. Now, before we unveil this, I would like Molly to briefly introduce herself to the listeners. So Molly, please, if you can introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Thank you, like I said before, for having me on Speak this morning. So my name is Molly Rice. I am a project officer for a local charity called Groundwork East. We operate in Luton and Bedfordshire. And I'm coming on the show today to talk about that we're currently offering free Wellbeing Walks and conservation works for anyone in the community across the whole of the Luton Borough.
Okay, thank you. So I will go into these walks shortly, but I wanted to get a bit of background information on Ground East. So Groundwork East, talk me through a bit about that. Who are they and what do they do? Okay,
so we are a community and environmental charity. We operate across the whole of the east of England, but our team in this area primarily work on projects in sort of the Luton and Bedfordshire area. So we do a lot of working outdoors with the community with a sort of environmental focus, and with a lot of groups as well. We try to improve sort of environmental education, getting people active to improve their physical and also mental health. So you may, if you obviously live in Luton, you may have heard some of our community gardens that we run. We've got a few across Luton. We do also a lot of rivers work that we do in the River Lee. We have three aims. So our aim is to create better places, improve people's prospects, and encourage greener living and working.
So I did have a nose around on the website, and I think the project's fantastic, actually, and I think it's been quite a hidden gem, or maybe there are things around the town that I've just not noticed.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think that we are trying to make a bit more of a name for ourselves. Starting after the pandemic, I feel, to become a little bit more relevant with some of the work that we do. I think a lot of, like we said before, a lot of people have felt a lot of social isolation and not as engaged with their community as they have before. So I think now we're sort of a bit more coming to the forefront. We have been operating in Luton and Beds for a long time, but I think now we're just starting to feel like we're really starting to reach more of the community, definitely.
Yeah, and I think now, post-pandemic, there probably is much more of a demand of this community connection. It's really needed because people have been locked away, essentially, in their homes. So, coming out and mingling with people that you're not familiar with and getting into that environment again. And it's quite nice because a lot of the people that I've had on my show that are trying to promote and encourage well-being, a lot of them are in coffee shops, in halls, in community centres. So it's quite confined spaces. So it's quite nice. that you have that different angle on things?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. You can get that quite when you're talking to someone on a one-on-one basis. It can feel quite intense if you're in an indoor situation. I think it completely changes the whole narrative of when you're outdoors, and your conversation could just flow because you're a little bit focused on something else, or maybe if you're going for a walk, it definitely sort of changes the pressure on the conversation. I think it's a lot easier to speak to someone when you're outdoors doing something. We have noticed that, you know, we sometimes, for example, I'm running a project with CAMS at the moment, and they find that they have quite clinical sort of offices, and when they bring their young people in, they feel very very intense pressure, but we've actually been running the gardening sessions, and they found that the children they open up so much more in that environment when they're doing something and in the fresh air. It definitely does make a difference.
Yeah, and I guess things like gardening and looking at nature and conservations and things like that, it's out the norm. It's not the norm thing to do. So like when you think about doing mental well-being activities or anything to encourage a positive environment, you look at a lot of people express it through art, through writing, through drawing, and they've got that platform to express. But to actually get your hands quite mucky and, you know, tucked into nature and do something like this, it's a different level. And you know, I've always shied away from gardening, and the listeners all know, Molly, I'm forever going on about how I'm trying to perfect my garden, and I'm slowly failing. But, you know, I do like to go out and have a pick at my garden and try and, you know, make it look presentable and connect with nature in that way. So it's quite a nice platform that you're offering children. So when you say that you've got the young people and the youth and the young children essentially coming to this project, how do they connect to Groundwork East? I mean, how do you find these people? What's the process that goes on there?
So we do lots of different work in the community with loads and loads of different groups. As previously talked about, we've got our community gardens in Luton, so we run one in Farley Hill and one at Luton Who Memorial Park, open to volunteers in the community. We have a focus there of learning sort of how to grow fresh fruit and vegetables, and meeting other members of the community, so we make it quite a nice sociable sort of space as well. We also do a lot of rivers work, so we currently got a 3-year project at Brickley Road to help clean the river and remove invasive species. So we also do children's work as well. So we work on rivers with children from schools and things like beavers and rainbows and cubs, and activities like that. So we basically we just apply for the funding. We sort of identify in an area what might need doing, and apply for funding through that way. Especially with the children's work, a lot of environmental education is still missing, and we think that we're able to offer a lot of that. And then one of the final things we do is we chair the Luton Food Poverty Alliance. So this is an alliance that meets 4 times a year with other organisations across Luton. So we come together to discuss how we can support those living in food poverty in Luton. As one of the aims of our community gardens that we run at the moment is sort of to help people facilitate their own skills to grow their own fruit and vegetables and things like that, as we know the sort of cost of living crisis at the moment is causing people to have not as much access to these fruit and vegetables. So by facilitating the skills is one of that. So we do also run the Food Poverty Alliance, where we meet regularly and see how we can support each other for the work that's being done about food poverty in Luton.
So that's really fantastic, and I think, you know, as I agree with you, growing your own vegetables and fruits and vegetables is going to be the way forward, especially with the way the cost of living is going, and actually there's more reward in it. I mean, recently we've started to grow a few of our own strawberries, and I've even grown some lettuce as well, and the lettuce grows in abundance. So, you know, we've been having that, and my youngest son, who he's not very good with his vegetables, but he loves the lettuce, and it's because it's homegrown. He's like, so we made this. I said, yes, you know, we've grown this. So he'll actually, you know, put it in his sandwich or chop it up and say, I want to have it as a side with my dinner. So he's really inclined to eat. So I think it's doing things like this, as well as eliminating food poverty, is also encouraging children to take a risk and actually try fruits and vegetables, take that risk, and and actually they'll be pleasantly surprised, as my son is. So it's quite nice when you grow your own crop and you actually, I've forgotten the saying, you reap what you sow or something. And you really do, because when you get your own vegetables and fruit, you really do appreciate it, and it's really bad to say this, but you're less likely to waste it, because the hard work that you put in to actually make that. So you're going to say, right, okay, it's going to be mashed potatoes, it's going to be chips, roast potatoes. You really want to use those potatoes, so you're not going to let them go to waste. So that's quite nice. Definitely. So do you find, Molly, that you've been running, and I'm assuming you've been working with Groundwork East for a while, so you can sort of build a picture with us about how it was before the pandemic and how it has been after the pandemic. Do you find that there's a larger uptake of people now? Are you reaching more people than you were before? Is there more interest now?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely more of an interest in sort of being outdoors and connecting with the community. And actually, although I know a lot of people have struggled through the pandemic, of course, so a lot of so we get all of our funding through grants and bids and stuff like that, and we find that there is a lot of work out there now that grant makers like the BLCF, the Beds and Luton Community Foundation, which we're working with, are putting specific bids out there to work specifically for the pandemic as almost like a recovery fund. So for example, this project that I'm on to talk about, the Walks and Works today, are funded by the Community Recovery Fund from the Bedfordshire and Luton Community Foundation. So grant makers and organisations are realising that there are still problems in the community in terms of COVID and the implications that's had. So they're providing that support and assistance a lot more. And through that work, that's allowed us to go out into the community a lot more and do a lot of the work that we think will be beneficial to people. And we've seen a lot more uptake, definitely, I would say so.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people are desperate to just go out and do something, and I think make a difference, because as you said, that it's giving something back to the community. So as you are, cleaning rivers and things like that, that's it's quite rewarding, because you walk away and you look and you think, right, I actually contributed positively towards the community, and it's not something that I did for myself. And I don't know about yourself, but I found that post-pandemic, a lot of people are now not thinking so selfishly. Now they want to do something where they're making a difference. So something like this is probably, is something that people really want to take on. So listeners, if you have just tuned in, I have Molly with me this morning, who is working with Groundwork East, and she's just been talking about how the services and projects that they run within the communities to help and promote stronger, healthier communities. If you do have any questions, please do message in on the studio number 07779 481 822. One I did want to ask, we've just got a couple of minutes before we go for break, believe it or not, is the projects that are run within the community. So, how does the public have a platform or a way of connecting with Groundwork East to say, I think something like this would be really good for the community. I've talked to a lot of people, and this could be businesses, this could be local people from the neighbourhood that have got together. So is there a way of them voicing their ideas or reaching out and getting something done?
Yeah, so absolutely. So all of our work is basically come from people identifying issues or finding statistics in Luton and things like that are missing from the community. So we're always looking for sort of new project ideas through people who live in Luton, as almost like a bottom-up approach. So if you have a community environmental education project that you think would be beneficial to the people of Luton, we're always keen to hear that, and that could be eventually put into practice. So, for example, for this project, the walks that we're running, we know that people sort of identified from their feedback surveys from many of our volunteer groups that we ran in Luton that they had felt socially isolated through the pandemic. And we also identified that many women highlighted they didn't feel as safe in their local sort of green spaces, which is two of the reasons why we put together the Wellbeing Walks project. We saw through the pandemic that people were accessing their local spaces more. I think it went from 54% of people were roughly going out once a week, but that went up to about 85% during the pandemic. So we knew that people were trying to access their spaces more, but actually some groups of people weren't able to do that as much. It was actually showed huge inequality. So like I say, single women and disabled people didn't meet that trend. And neither did sort of elderly individuals, which is one of the reasons why we put this bid together. So we identify the projects, and if anyone does have anything they think they'd like to see, definitely do get in touch, and we can discuss that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can see, Molly, we've got about 40 seconds until we head over to a break. So, listeners, there we go. So you can get in touch with the Groundwork East to put forward any ideas or suggestions that you have for the community around well-being. And Molly will be sharing contact details and any of that information in the second half of the show. So do stay tuned in and listen out for those contact details. But for now, we're heading towards a short commercial break. And if you have a hot drink, cold drink, whatever you're having with me this morning, this is your chance to go refill it and join us after a short break. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Welcome back to Mother's Planet. I'm your host Neelam, and joining me on the show this morning is my guest Molly. Morning.
Morning.
So in the show so far, Molly and I have been discussing Groundwork East, a community hub essentially that helps build better communities through their work and projects. Now, Molly was just about to go into the main project that she's on here on my show this morning for, which is talking about the Wellbeing Walks. Now, Molly, if you can just briefly introduce these Wellbeing Walks. What is this project? And it's not just a specific park. These are varied across many parks.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we identified a bit of a need for wellbeing walks after COVID, having a need for a community sort of meet-up. So we decided to put on Wellbeing Walks and Works project together. The aims of the walks is to sort of improve both physical and mental health. We are working on these walks in partnership with the Lee Vale Medical Centre in Luton. Okay. So they bring some of their patients who they've highlighted may benefit from the walks, but they also are open to anyone in the community as well. Their staff are the professionals who are there to support people who are not traditionally benefiting from being active in the natural environment. So, they're bringing down people who they think would benefit as well, and they're there to help with the well-being side of things. But it's not like a clinical thing. It's very much just like an excuse to get together and have a bit of a chat and socialise, and they're there help to facilitate that as well as providing some sort of resources and help if required. So the Wellbeing Walks run every Monday until the end of September, all across the Luton Borough. Each walk will have sort of elements of nature and well-being. So there'll be very gentle exercise with a sort of focus on breathing and stretching and heart rate and those sorts of things. We encourage socialising through the walk, and I'll sort of lead on some sort of aspects about education, about nature as well during each of the walks. A lot of them, like you say, are going to be in the major parks, such as sort of Stockwood Park, Wardown Park, but also we're looking at other locations as well, which will be sort of beauty spots in Luton, which might not have been to before. For example, we've got some spaces in like Wigmore County Wildlife Site, where there's loads of wild orchids and stuff, and people might not have been down there before, so that's lovely. We've made sure that all the locations across Luton, there is access to free parking, and they're all close to bus routes as well, just to make it a little bit more accessible for people. And the idea, by spreading all these walks out across Luton, so not doing them in the same location sort of each week, it gives everyone that access to be able to attend, regardless of transport and any other commitments. It should help and allow people to be able to access us a bit better.
Yeah.
And as this is Walks and Works project, after 4 Mondays of doing different walks, we also wanted to bring a conservation element into it, so doing a work at the end of the 4 walks. So this will be just an activity in the community, such as things like a river cleaner or a butterfly survey, giving opportunities to have a go at doing something a little bit different, not just the walks, but also actually putting that, hopefully the socialising and friendship, and doing something a little bit different with that as well. Maybe something that people haven't really done before, so something quite exciting to do after the four Mondays of walks. We'll do a work on a Monday as well. So I do have a programme of events, which we'll provide contact details for in a bit, and I can send that out with all the sort of dates, times and locations, if you are interested in joining us.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you so much, Molly. That's really well explained there about everything that's covered in those. And I like the little breakup that you have after 4 weeks, because it can get a bit mundane when you're just going out. And as much as, especially women, we like to talk and we like to socialise, it's quite nice to have that breakup to say, right, okay, now actually we're going to utilise what we've learnt and try and put that into something here. So, I mean, for myself especially, I like to think I'm green-fingered and I know everything about nature, but there's a lot of plants and flowers I don't know about. There's a lot of animals and wildlife that I don't know names of, and I think I've actually been told off by my children because I've named the birds wrong, or I've named an insect wrong. So, it's a really good opportunity to just sort of buff ourselves up, essentially, just get well educated with nature and understand what insect is what, and what flowers and plants are what. So looking and listening to yourself, there's a couple of questions. I mean, firstly, are these walks catered for all, or is it women specifically?
So this specific one is not only catered for women. Anyone, regardless of age and gender, can attend. However, if people out there are looking for women's only walks, they are welcome to contact me, and I may be able to facilitate that. It is something that we are currently looking to offer as well. But as a general rule, this is open to the public. We're also aware early on that we needed to make sure our walks were sort of a bit more access friendly, as I know that's quite restrictive for some people if they're not.
Which is quite nice, really, because if you wanted to bring your spouse along, your husband along, you've got the opportunity to do that, and you can go off and you can together enjoy a walk in a productive way, and join other people as well. So it's quite nice to have that aspect where it is open to all. But I think there may be quite a high demand for women, especially given that earlier, as you mentioned, not many women feel safe walking in parks.
Yeah, so actually that was one of the reasons we are trying to put on some women only walks as well. So a lot of young women often have reported to feel unsafe when spending time in green spaces. I think they found about 49% of young women feel unsafe when they go outside. So we like to believe, obviously, the whole community walks, they do create a safe environment for women and their children. But I do appreciate that there is the need as well for these women only walks, and if people do also want to do that, then they can get in touch with me about that, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a high percentage there, isn't there, actually?
Yes.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because last night I was looking through my magazine, and there was an article about post-pandemic, how women and men, the percentage before the pandemic and after the pandemic of women and men that worry and are beginning to have anxiety and start thinking about life and life worrying health issues, it's actually increased. So it's increased for both men and women, but actually it was a 40% increase for women, where women are now beginning to think a bit more about their health, and they are more worried about day-to-day things, and their anxiety is actually reaching peak week. So, I think something like this would really benefit them, where they can, I think, talking to somebody else and knowing that somebody else is going through a similar situation or has similar questions, it kind of normalizes your feeling and makes you feel that, okay, it's normal to feel anxious about this. It's normal to feel, so it's quite it would be a really good environment, I think, for women to really have that opportunity where they can have that.
Yeah, definitely. So like I say, if there are people who, the Monday walks are open to the community, open to anyone. But if you are specifically looking for women's only walks, definitely do get in touch, and we can facilitate that for sure. Yeah. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe when they go out, and they can enjoy and just put those sort of stress-free and have even just an hour a week with other women like them as well. And I know that we're obviously talking a lot about children on this one as well. So we like I say, we did realise early on that we need to make sure that our walks are very accessible for wheelchair users and pushchair users, of course. So because of this, we've sort of labelled over half of our walks as family and wheelchair friendly, meaning that they're very inclusive. We're happy for slightly older children who don't need a pushchair to attend all of the walks we're running, but we have specifically put on pushchair ones where all the parts will be tarmacked, so the parents can sort of focus on the well-being aspect of the walk by sort of socialising, where the children will be occupied with a nature activity. So we'll put something on for them to do, so that the women don't have to worry too much about looking after their children, and can really use that time to sort of socialise and improve their well-being. That's the idea behind that.
Yeah, that's lovely. You've answered my question there. And Molly, can you add me on, please? I'll have myself there and all my children, especially if there's activities to keep them busy, because that's one of the things that's really not always addressed when you sign up to a lot of activities, where they don't consider, I mean, they're open to let you bring children, but they don't actually consider that the children are there, but we can't focus because our attention's going to be more on the children and more about, oh, are they okay? You know, can I? And I know me, I come with a huge bag of goodies, so I can just every 5 seconds give them something to do. So this is really nice to know that actually it's going to be catered for, and children like that will have activities on. So that's really nice. Now, I wanted to ask, so I mean, that's really good, because you have considered the aspects of wheelchairs and pushchairs, and mums like myself that have a pushchair with a young baby. So that'd be brilliant. What are the actual health benefits of walking out in the nature like this?
So, as I think a lot of people are becoming more aware, there are huge benefits to being out in nature and walking in nature. I think the link between nature and walking has been suspected, but I think, like, we go back to the COVID pandemic again, we've seen a huge increased awareness of the positive impact that nature has on mental health and well-being. So during lockdown, people in towns have found that parks and gardens to become sort of an unexpected sort of source of joy and calmness as well, that they didn't have before. And actually, I was reading yesterday, interestingly enough, that being outdoors for just an hour a day is now considered as important as having one of your 5 fruit and vegetables a day, or doing your 150 minutes of exercise per week as well. So actually, public health and other experts are saying being outdoors is so important. All the vitamins that you even get, but also actually just for your well-being as well, is so important, as important as those aspects which are always drilled into us, you know, when you're younger, the 5 fruit and vegetable things, always so important. And the impacts actually on your mental health are astounding. So it sort of reduces levels of depression, anxiety, fatigue as well. I know that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, because you think you might be more tired after going for a walk, but actually going for a walk can help you with tiredness. It can actually make you feel more awake, and really, really good for you over time. In terms of physical health as well, just helping you to be more active, helping you to meet more like-minded people, and connecting to your local community. So we spoke before, I think a lot of people sort of felt a bit of a disconnect during the last couple of years. And this project is really to start helping people connect with nature, help connecting with their local community. We were just doing a walk this week, actually, and there was a few people who said, I haven't been down to this park here in Luton for years and years. But they just mentioned again how much they liked it, and that they'll come back. And we were having a walk around the gardens, and at the moment is such a great time to go out as well, because everything is flowering and looks beautiful out there. So they were really felt so much more connected with their local area, and that's really good, and that's really positive as well, because we do have some lovely spaces in Luton, and people just need to find those again sometimes and reconnect with those, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's you've hit the nail on the head, and I think that's exactly it. I mean, I took my children, and I had a baby in lockdown, so she just turned 2 in this June, and I took her down to Stockwood Park, and we haven't been to Stockwood Park. And I was trying to remember if I've ever actually brought her to Stockwood Park, and it was her first time in Stockwood Park in 2 years. So I was like, wow. So, I hadn't been to the park for 2 years. It just felt so strange saying that, but I hadn't. And, we actually spent about 4 hours in the park that day, because we just literally let the kids run around, play. They've got like a stable near there as well. Yeah. So the kids saw the horses as well. And it was really nice to just be out and enjoy that again.
Yeah. And I think there's some elements to places that you might not have seen. So we went on one of the walks we did at Stockwood Park, and actually, there was some routes that people had never been on before, and they said, I'll come to the park all the time, but I've never done this route, and I've never seen this bit of Stockwood Park, which I think is also really interesting. Sometimes you do go to a place and you don't really know where to go or where's good to go, so hopefully this also helps people connect a little bit better to their local park, as we can show them maybe some bits they haven't seen before, and point out some bits interesting that they wouldn't necessarily know about.
And I think what's nice is for someone like myself, whenever I take my children to the park, I would only, especially if I don't have my husband with me, I would only go to the busy areas. I would only go to where I know. So because I would be afraid if I step out of that zone, I'm going to get lost, or I'm not sure what's going to be beyond this point. So doing it in the safe environment that you're offering, going out and stretching out to those zones and looking at those zones and actually seeing it's quite normal, there's quite nice things here, it gives you that confidence to say, actually, children, look, there's somewhere better I can take you, let's venture out to this part. So it's giving us that education that actually there are other parts of the park, and it's not just this zone, and there are other aspects that you could really enjoy as a family as well. So I think doing it in a controlled way with yourselves first, and experimenting like that, and then coming back and doing it with a family or what have you, it gives you that confidence as well. So Molly, talk to me about how long the duration of the walk. So on the Mondays, is it for a couple of hours? Is it an hour? How long are the actual walks?
Yeah, so we try not to do them too long, but just because obviously people have lots of different needs, and we do. They're not the quickest walks. We won't speed round. They're quite nice and gentle. So we roughly make them between an hour and 15-ish minutes. But it does always depend how long people take to go round. But that's fine. We'll point out different bits, and we'll keep stopping, especially in the heat and things like that. There's times for lots of water breaks, and times to have a bit of snacks and things like that as well. And we're running these until sort of October time, the end of September, October. And we will stop for the winter, but then we are planning on restarting them again in the spring. Although we would encourage over the winter, I know people find it a lot more difficult to get out in the winter, encourage people still to go out and meet up and do the walks, but we'll be facilitating them again from spring next year. So this is a 2-year project, so we're hoping to make it, by making it 2 years, we're hoping that people will really sort of engage with it and know that it's a bit more of a long-term thing than just running until the end of sort of October time this year.
Yeah, no, that was the other question I was going to ask, because, these things often come in short bursts, and then if you haven't had that 6-week period, people think, oh, I've missed out. But actually, and it's nice that you're extending it all the way to October, because it's the early part of autumn, nearly winter. Yeah. So you do get to see the different seasons. So while it might be too hot for some people to take part in these walks now, come September, October time, it's much cooler, and it's actually quite nice. And, And it's, again, the nature's totally different. The leaves will be a different colour, the flowers will be different. So, again, so you're getting to see both sides of what happens in the different seasons. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she was asking me, who have you got on your show for tomorrow? And I was explaining to her, and she was saying to me, that's so good, Mum, so that you're going to get to see different seasons. And I never saw it like that. And it's only when she said that I went, that's true, actually, that there are different there are different plants and things that grow in different times of the year. So seeing the summer and seeing the autumn, actually, it's quite nice to have that. So I guess your activities and conservation activities will be different come the winter time.
Yeah, and it's quite nice because although the locations are different throughout the walks that we're going to be doing, we will repeat on them a couple of times. So the ones we start with now in July we'll also do again in September. So it'd be interesting to see how the places look different, and it will definitely change the sort of activities that we plan to do on the walks. We'll be looking, especially with the children as well, we might be looking more at different colours, getting them to do some of the colour sheets, finding things that are orange and brown and things, whereas now obviously we'd be looking at a lot very different colours to the autumn. So yeah, that's nice as well. Good educational point there. And yeah, it's just, again, it's all about that connection with nature. I really think that promotes that.
Absolutely. So I mean, you are going to be doing activities and all sorts on these nature walks. Will this the activities, the outcome of these activities, will this be stored somewhere? Will this be given somewhere? What would happen with that?
Yeah, so we have different activities which we will bring onto the walks. I always do the walk the week beforehand to sort of note things that we might talk about and do. And we'll do some things. There'll be offers of like therapeutic activities. So we might do making some posies with the women and making sort of nature bookmarks as we go along, or have some sort of information sheets that people can look through. Like we were doing leaf spotting the other day, because a lot of people actually don't know too much about trees and stuff that we've got in the parks. So they were having a look at the different leaves and trying to identify which trees and stuff they were. And then for the children, we'll have some things like scavenger sheets. They can do all very simple arts and crafts that they can just do on the walk. We make stickmans and things like that as well, which is great fun. And so we make it easy for children of all ages. Although I'm saying this, if people are interested in sort of just going for the walk and socialising, I'll point out a few interesting points on the walk. For example, in Wardown Park, we were looking for the black squirrels that they apparently have this week. But if not, we'll just let them enjoy being outside. The options are always open for people to do whatever they feel comfortable with. So they're happy if they just want to socialise, and if they just want to do that, then that's fine. But I like to give people the options as well of doing activities, because they can be quite therapeutic. But I do appreciate that some people are just looking for the opportunity to have a chat and socialise with people as well.
Absolutely. And is there commitment? So if you're coming one week, do you have to come the next week, or are you quite relaxed about how people come and go to these?
No, we are very relaxed. So again, we appreciate that we're about to hit summer holidays and school holidays and things. So it's absolutely fine. We just have the discussion about whether we should continue the walks through the summer holidays, but actually it was highlighted that sometimes women and other groups feel that everything does stop in the summer holidays, and actually that can be one of the loneliest times for people, as everything else stops, and then there's no other social groups going on because of that. So we actually decided to continue that throughout August as well. But yeah, there's absolutely no commitment. So like I say, we'll send out the dates and the times and the leaflets, and then if you are interested, you can just, it is useful when people do let me know if they are coming, but they don't have to. I'll be there at the meeting point, and people can just turn up, and that's absolutely fine. And there is no commitment to that.
That's brilliant. And one of the biggest, huge letdowns I've had is whenever there's activities like this going, when I've expressed interest, they're booked up or there's not enough places. So do you have limitations as to how many people can come? Because I think that's the worst thing, being let down of no.
No, that's a very good point, actually. No, I don't think we have any limitations really on numbers, we're happy to facilitate as many people as possible. As I said previously, we are working with the medical centre as well, so we'll have 2 members of their staff helping me to run it. So unless we get, inundated with 20 plus people, I don't think we would have issues with sort of numbers and things, because they're definitely there to help me as well. So yeah, but for now there is sort of no concern about that. And everyone can come for a walk. In fact, actually, when we were doing one the other day, we spotted a couple of people, and they just joined us. Even though they were going for their own walk, they were like, "Oh, this is lovely, a meetup group. We're like, we'll come and join you." So that's nice as well. So yeah, just open to everyone. We're just trying to make it as accessible to people as possible, really.
Brilliant, absolutely. And I like the fact that you pick parks where there is free parking and there's bus routes to get to these places. So we've got no excuse, listeners. So, please do express your interest to Molly this morning. So, Molly, I guess the question to ask now is contact details. If you could just share maybe an email address or a contact number. So anyone that is tuned in right now, grab your pens and papers and jot them down. But if you don't have anything to hand, I will have all of this information uploaded onto the Facebook part of the show, so anything that has been missed, people can go back and catch all the information there. So just contact details, please.
Yes, of course. So like I say, these walks and conservation works are open to anyone. Welcome to come to as many as you like with no commitment. So I will send out, if you do get in contact with me about them, I'll send out a leaflet with all the dates, times and locations and the family friendly listed walks that I spoke about earlier. So my email address is Molly, MOLLY .rice, RICE, just like the food. And then it's at Groundwork, which is GROUNDWORK, no S on the end of Groundworks, because we get that a lot. So just groundwork.org.uk. So that's my email address. And then if you do want to get in contact with me via, you could give me a call or drop me a message, and that's fine. It's 07702 941 445. That's 07702 941 445. And I'll be happy to speak to anyone who wants to get in touch.
Molly, it's been a pleasure having you on the show this morning.
Thank you. I was just going to say, and if walking isn't your thing, but you're interested in other volunteering work such as river work or gardening, please also do get in touch as well, and I can help you with that.
Yeah, and also for those women that wanted women only specific walks, that's the email address to contact Molly on, and just flag that up in your subject for the email so Molly knows what it's about, and then hopefully you'll be able to get those parks sorted. Molly, thank you so much for joining me on the show this morning. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I wish you well. I have no doubt that these walks will be successful, and the people will really enjoy them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.